Going once, going twice. Sold.
Hi, this is Ferre with TaxDealSupport.com. I'm here with Swenson, and in this video, we're going to show you properties that have sold for as little as $1 in tax sales. In fact, we're going to discuss with you, show you how it works, and actually show you examples of this. So it's not clickbait. This is actually something that can be done through government tax sales.
I have to say,
Wait, before we give our answer, let's talk money, dollars and cents, Wes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shade's right. You can purchase homes, commercial property, land all across the country as little as 10 to 40 cents on the dollar. And as we're going to show you in this video, where you can actually purchase property for as little as $1.
Yeah, so we want to go and we're going to look at some examples here of properties that have sold at recent sales, and then we're going to explain a little bit more about how you can get involved with this investment strategy and a little bit more about how it works. So what we're going to do is let's go check out a tax deed auction that ended here just recently. What we're going to do here is we're going to switch screens here for a second, and we're going to pull up. All right, first thing we're going to pull up is this slide right here, and this is about the auction itself. This is the sale that we're going to be looking at. This is an auction. We can see that it is for Vanderburgh County, and this would be in Indiana, I believe, right?
The Indiana Pacers are looking for a measure of revenge tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting. This auction took place last month, and these are all properties that sold essentially this online auction. In fact, as we scroll down a little bit further, one thing that was interesting about this tax sale, and this isn't normal, guys, but they actually went through the quiet title process. So the county went through the quiet title process, so these properties are essentially warranty deeds. Now, most of the time we buy properties, we buy them as a tax sale property or a tax deed, which is going to eliminate things like mortgages, judgments, but those government liens can still attach. But in this particular sale, as Shade's pointing there, they actually went through that quiet title process.
Yeah, it really is pretty unique. I mean, they even say right here, in order to increase buyer confidence at the auction, the Vanderburgh County Commissioners have sought quiet title orders for each property to be sold, verifying the property is free and clear of all liens and encumbrances, on the property. And the asterisk they have there is, except for certain federal tax liens, and that's simply just because they can't guarantee that. But what they're essentially telling us, though, is that they are pursuing quiet title on all of the properties, and so the properties are going to be sold free and clear. But beyond that, also, with quiet title, which is something you just don't really ever see with tax sales.
no further questions.
Yeah, in fact, one of the listings, I noticed that they had actually already contacted the IRS for one that had an IRS lien, and essentially is kind of already in that time frame. So if there is an IRS lien, what we have to do is contact the IRS, and the IRS has 120 days to either take ownership of the property, pay off your investment, or release the lien. 9 times out of 10, the IRS just releases that lien.
Taxes! Taxes! Beautiful, lovely taxes!
All right, so this is the actual list here of the 75 properties that sold, and the current bid essentially is the final bid that the properties received. So as we are looking at these, we can see properties here that sold for $100, $100. We can see properties here that sold for varying amounts, upwards to, you can see $2,900 on some of the properties that are valued higher. That's actually a home, that we're looking at, and.
Yeah, in fact, let's start at that very first property there, the one that sold for $20, lot number 3. And let's go ahead and copy that parcel number, and let's look it up in the county records. That's one of the first steps that we take. You kind of have to copy it, right? But yeah.
There we go. We'll copy it right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to paste it here into their parcel search tool. And that would be our property right there.
So here's going to pull up all of the county records for us. We can see kind of over in the left-hand corner, this lot has an assessed value of $10,500. We can look through some of the parcel details. It has the transfer history, the valuation, the assessment, improvement information. Of course, in this case, it's just a piece of land. so we're not going to have any of that. But then we can also go ahead and look at the lot itself with the GIS map. So we see the lot listed down here below. This lot has an assessed value of $10,500 and ended up selling for $20.
Yeah, which is incredibly cheap. I mean, basically the property it's being given away. I think when you're looking at it at that price.
Got $1.99. I've got $7.99. I've got $16.99. Cheap.
But it's not the only one. There are quite a few properties that are like this. Throughout this sale.
In fact, let's look at that number 4, that home that sold for $2,900.
Yeah, which is really pretty, it's surprising. Now it says that it could qualify for a raise order, so I'm sure the condition is not good. It's probably been vacant for a while, but it's a home that basically sold for, for less than $3,000.
In fact, let's grab that address and let's go ahead and look it up, the address on Google. And that raise order, they put that on all of the properties that went through the tax sale, is kind of essentially a warning. But I think in most of these cases, you can work with the city. They're putting that more of a liability so that they're not liable.
There's our house right there. And it's like a July 2023 images. So they are about 2 years old. The images are roughly a little bit, but it's a nice neighborhood though.
It's a nice neighborhood. Yeah, I agree. And there's also, at that time, there was somebody still occupied in the property. So it's probably been made vacant since that time. Now let's go ahead and let's look up that address on Redfin right quick and just see what they estimate the property value to be.
$70,000, estimated value on it is pretty good, especially considering that it sold for $3,000, less than that really. I mean, it sold for a tiny percentage of its value. I mean, so much so that you pretty well could do whatever you wanted with it.
Yeah, really, and it's not a very big property. It's 840 square feet, 847, which means as far as rehab's concerned, we're not looking at a major structure. As far as lots of bedrooms, lots of bathrooms that we need to fix up. So something like this is a pretty easy rehab job to go in there, fix the property up. You could do what we call lipstick rehab and either rent the property out, you could turn around and flip it, or you could just sell it as is, buy it for $2,900, sell it to somebody for $30,000, and then at that point they can come in and do the rehab. Now the one thing that is nice about these, and this isn't typical, as we mentioned before, that these have gone through quiet title. So we don't need to go through that quiet title process. We can get title insurance on these properties without going through the quiet title process or using some type of specialty title company like Tax Title Services.
Oh, what's crazy is it means you could just turn around and sell these, like any other property, without dealing with any of the normal hangups of a tax sale property, that's foreclosed on, because the quiet title process has already been done. So that is pretty remarkable here.
Spicy meat. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, definitely pretty interesting.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what number we're gonna look at next here.
Let's go ahead and go down to number 17. And I just looked at a few of them. Almost a lot of these properties on here are pretty good. And with this property, we're going to do the same thing, kind of grab that address and go look it up on Google, and then we'll Redfin it as well.
And it's in the same area here, very close. And so our images are probably going to be around the same age as well. Let's see if that is the case. Yeah, June of 2023. So it's around the same age here. But the property itself, though, looks like it's in pretty good shape. As of 2 years ago, I mean, the roof looks good. There's no real obvious signs it might be occupied right now. It kind of looks like it. It's got a flag up.
Yeah, you pointed out the same things that I was looking at. The roof looks pretty good. It looks like it's got, maybe not new siding, but it has been resided since original. Even some of the windows look like they may have been upgraded as well. So, as far as purchasing it for $12,000 or $15,000, doesn't look like it was too bad of a deal. But we need to check and really kind of see what the market is to get a better idea.
Yeah, and then the market on it is pretty strong at 121. And so really they picked it up for a tiny percentage of value. I mean, they paid, they're into it about 15% value or less. you know, which is really, I mean, that's just not very much at all for a property that's valued there at 120,000.
Yeah, I think they're going to do pretty well on it. And again, these properties, you know, have that quiet title, so it makes it a lot easier to be able to turn around and sell that for a higher price because they've already gone through the quiet title process.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could, yeah, basically, you don't have to deal with things like, you know, trying to get through quiet title after you purchase it here because it's already done. It's just like buying a property. I mean, really, it's all the benefits of wholesale, buying wholesale, but without the negative, which would normally be having a wholesale style deed. You know, you get a quality deed instead. It's great.
Well, that's one sale we got.
Yeah, it's a pretty good sell. We'll go ahead and let's go down to property number 28. I thought this one was kind of interesting. I always get kind of excited when I see shops, you know, kind of have an interest in classic cars and things like that. And so it does kind of, it always excites me when I see shops or garages. Sometimes you'll see garages on their own lot and it's just a garage. And I actually love those properties because you can wholesale them or sell them to somebody there local that may use it for storage, may use it for, you know, personal uses. But it, you know, it makes it an asset where you're not having a home, but you could still rent that out, or you could turn around and flip it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, garages like that, these garages sitting by themselves are really nice. And look at this, it actually used to be painted differently here. That was back in 2007 here. You can see we jumped to 2019 images and it's been repainted. And yeah, I mean, it's got two bays and it has two you know, different doors, almost like you could rent it, you know, as two separate units. You know, or it's split in half, you know, is kind of the way that it looks. But in any case, there's lots of people that are looking for garage space and you know, a place where they can park vehicles and work on stuff or store stuff. And yeah, property like that, which they picked up for only $5,000, could serve all of those.
I think something's wrong with her.
Yeah, in fact, I think that it's probably listed as commercial. And so, you know, being a commercial property, you know, you could use that as a business, you could use it for personal uses, you know, and would have a huge amount of benefit. This is the one type of property, though, that we would probably check out on the EPA website just to make sure there's no issues. It's not hard to do. We can just look at the address, look it up, and make sure that nothing has been, there's no issues. I doubt that there is, but that's one of the due diligence steps that we teach our members and our coaching students to do before buying a property that's like this or industrial type property.
Yeah, it's an interesting property. Yeah, and really, it is, yeah, a pretty good deal, really good deal. I mean, at that price point, I don't think they'll have any problem there monetizing it. That's one nice thing is that, you know, you can make money with it here, renting it out if you want, or you could just sell it outright and be able to make money on it.
Yeah, in fact, I think you could probably rent it out for more than you could, you know, a small single family home because it could be used as a business property. And, you know, as far as the market value, I did a little bit of research. You know, I didn't go back too far, but I think that it's probably worth over 50 grand, you know, at the bare minimum, you know, upwards of 80 to 100, you know, depending on the exact market. We'd do some more due diligence if we'd purchased this property before purchasing it.
Yeah, it's an interesting property though, and cheap. You know, at $5,000 is just such a deal.
What's next?
Yeah, let's go down to number 32. This one's actually interesting because there's a few properties on this list that didn't get a bid at all. But I thought this was interesting, you know, that nobody even bidded on it, you know, because it looks like it could be usable property. Now, we always go through and check the zoning for that area. It's something that we talk about in our trainings on how to be able to do that. But if this is a legal zone property that can be used as a building lot, you know, the fact that it didn't get a dollar bid is pretty shocking.
Yeah, here it is. We can see some of the property information, and yeah, I mean, you can see it. You know, starting bid was $1, didn't get an opening bid, so it basically just is, you know, wasn't purchased.
Yeah, you can see that it has an assessed value of 9,200. So it's a property that does have value. We'd go ahead and make sure it's still a buildable lot. But even at a side lot for $1, you tell me you couldn't sell it, you know, for $500, $1,000, even it just wholesale over the weekend. I think you probably could, you know, even something to a neighbor when you're looking at buying a property for $1.
Yeah, it is such a low price that it's essentially being given away, and so your options. I mean, it's not hard to pull value from something like that. I mean, all land has value, especially land, usable lots definitely have a set value. Just like this property is definitely going to have, a pretty decent earth set value, and so basically for it to come up for $1 and to not get a bid is pretty crazy.
Yeah, usually, for the students that we're working with, we'll focus on properties we can get for, about $1,000, $500 to $1,000 is usually the low. So it's not like you see a dollar property selling all the time, but they do happen every single year. We point them out. We make these lists available to our members and to our coaching students before, so that they know all of these type of auctions that are taking place. I mean, this isn't a big company. They may do 1 or 2 sales a year. And that's something we do with our membership, is look for all of these. We've been doing this and we've had our membership program since 2007. So it gives us the opportunity to look for these type of auctions.
I'd buy that for $1.
We can go down to number 66 next.
Yeah, well, and what's crazy is if you just look at the prices too, it's not like we're just cherry picking, 1 or 2 nice examples. There's a lot of examples here that are inexpensive. I mean, a lot of these are not high, priced between $20 to $200 or $500. Most of these are not real high, and the ones you do see that are higher are usually for homes or something that does have significant value and use to it, that you could make money on.
Yeah, I mean, you can see lot 33 there sold for $3,400. That's a nice home there. You can see lot 31. Looks like some type of, could even be a duplex. This sold for $1,500. There was a ton of good deals on these lists.
Oh, $1.
Yeah, there really is. Okay, he says 60.
Yeah, 66.
And here we go. Yeah, this is another one here that sold for $1. You can see all these ones sold for $1. 3 of them up here above. Or actually, if those didn't get bids, this one got a bid. No bids on this one. No bids on this one. 1 bid on this one over here though, and 1 bid on this one at $10.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and grab that parcel number and we'll look it up on the county records.
And here we have our property and our property address. And I wonder if this one used to have a house on it.
Some of them very well could have. I think this one probably did. That would usually be a big risk for us because we'd have to check into demolition liens. But that's the one thing that was nice about this auction, is they've gone through and done the quiet title. And so those demolition liens have essentially been extinguished. What the county's trying to do is they're just trying to get these properties back onto the books, where people are paying property taxes. They're in charge of upkeeping the property. And so, they're just blowing these properties out. And we see these in the commissioner sales in Indiana. Some of the commissioner sales have a 120-day redemption period attached to the property, but these one, they're just selling you straight up tax deeds.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, and it appears to be usable by all accounts. I mean, it's as usable as the properties next to it, and it also looks like it looks like the remnants of what maybe were a home, or at least like the sidewalk running up to it possibly, or maybe there's never been anything there, and I'm just seeing that.
There's a chance that several, at least I know that several of these properties used to have homes on them.
Yeah.
But we could go ahead and check. But like Shade said, I think that it does look like it's buildable. Now, we wouldn't just trust the fact that it looks similar to the other lots. That's where you've always got to do your due diligence. Even though tax sale investing has huge profit margins, you can also make mistakes. I mean, Shade just went to an auction last month where he saw people making mistakes because they didn't do their due diligence beforehand, buying a lot for maybe $1,000 or $1,500 that was worth, $6 or $7 grand, thinking they're getting a good deal, just to find out that there's a $10,000, demo lien against it or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw dozens of people buying lots that we knew were not big enough to meet the standards for use. So in other words, the properties are not usable. So essentially, you've got to have 2 of them in a row in order to make them usable. And so everything that people are buying, and they were paying good high prices for them. And it's not like this just happens in one sale. It happens in pretty much every sale that we participate in. We see people making foolish purchases or making mistakes based on what must be either a lack of research they've done on it, or I don't know if they're guessing, but certainly, yeah, we see people make those kinds of mistakes that cost them quite a bit of money, on a regular basis at the auctions. In fact, it's probably one of the most interesting aspects of attending live auctions, if you ever can, is that you can see in real time people making, bad choices.
Yeah.
And I'm in $500,000.
Yeah, in fact, we've actually seen a lot better deals lately through online auctions, because if you go through the process of getting registered, you're usually going to be more of an informed investor than people that just hear about a tax sale in the area and then kind of go down to the county courthouse and they see other people bidding against the property. And you don't know how many times we've seen two uneducated investors bidding against each other because they think that the person they're bidding against knows what they're bidding on. And then that person's bidding against them thinking they know, and they both are clueless, bidding up the price of a property that shouldn't even be purchased, like Shade said, because it's not buildable, because there's something like a demolition lien against it.
Yeah, that one's a pretty good sized property.
Yeah, look at that one. That one has an assessed value of 21 grand. I didn't even look up that one.
Yeah, that one sold for $1.
Wow, that's the best. That's the best lot deal in there because it's big.
Yeah, I think that is just crazy. It is pretty good size there, and you can see that it, you've got neighboring properties that are right there. Somebody's probably using this as kind of like, for their side stuff, but it's a big full size lot. In fact, if you look at it, it's the same size as the lot, this one, but they had to have two of them here, in order to put their property on, the same thing. So yeah, that probably is a usable lot as well.
Yeah, to me, that's the the best one out of the bunch for at least the dollar group. It's got a higher assessed value. It's larger. It's I wouldn't guarantee it's buildable, but I would say there's a 99% chance that it's buildable based on what we've seen in other similar cities as far as their zoning codes are concerned.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And yeah, this one actually did get a bid. So somebody was smart enough to, to at least put a bid on this one and pick it up there for that minimum amount. And let's see, yeah, you can see it's right between those two. Yeah, and we're out there in person. Yeah, this is the actual lot right there. We can see the stuff that, people have got some of their stuff parked on it. But that's it's a good, nice lot, and it's cleared.
Yeah, I mean, how easy would it be to wholesale that property for $5 grand? Even the person that's buying it is buying a $21,000 lot for $5 grand. You could sell that pretty quickly if somebody knows that they're buying a property for 25 cents on the dollar, and you've still made, $4,999 off of it. I mean, we'll have to take out maybe some recording fees and stuff like that. But you can make $4,500 plus on a property and sell it very quickly.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy to see there. Well, now let's see here. Is there anything else we want to review on this, or any other properties?
No, we just have a couple of key points, I think, before we leave.
The bloomin' key.
Yeah, well, let's do this. So, first off, when it comes to tax sales, one of the things that makes them unique, and one of the reasons why we can say that they're free and clear of liens and encumbrances, is because in order for these properties to be foreclosed on by a local government like a county, they have to go through a judicial foreclosure, and that judicial foreclosure is a powerful foreclosure. It wipes out pretty much all liens and encumbrances with the exception of certain types. And so that's one of the things about tax sale properties that I guess by their nature, leads them to be pretty good deals. They're going to be cheaper than you can find with almost any other properties, because the person selling them basically doesn't have a personal interest in how much they sell for. So you can actually get good deals on properties selling very, very low percentage of value.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Shade said, it goes through that judicial foreclosure, which means it's going to eliminate mortgages, but those government liens could still be attached. And that's the reason that we need to research the legal records, what we call the recorder or clerk's records. We need to research the assessor records and go through and find out exactly what the property is. It's so important that we make sure it's a good investment before we buy. Even if we can pick it up for a cheaper price, it's still going to be very important to go through that due diligence process. That's how investors make mistakes, is by not fully researching and understand what they're doing.
Yeah, in fact, it's very much something that we can check for. I mean, if there are liens against the property, this is something that we can find using, online records, using, local county records. But we have to be able to find that before we buy. We don't want to find out about something like that after we buy. I mean, we've seen liens for incredible amounts. I mean, certainly something as simple as a demolition on a property could be a lien for $5,000 to $10,000 very easily. So you want to be careful with liens, even nuisance liens. While they might start small, at $300 or $500, but they're growing constantly with interest, and so they can become large over time. And liens like that are not going to get wiped out with a foreclosure, and so that's something that's the reason why they're at risk, is because there's the potential there that the buyer may have to pay for that if you buy it, or in order to get the property, essentially. So yeah, it's definitely something you want to research for, and you can research for, just like you want to do the research for looking at what the market value on the property is based on actual comps, and not just based on what anything says.
Yeah, Shade brings up a good point about the market value, because determining the market value is going to help us determine our high bid amount. Whenever we're looking at a property, we always use a percentage of property value. So we're trying to get the property for 5% of the property's value, or 10%, or 20%, or if it's a good property, maybe we even pay 30 or 35 cents on the dollar if it makes sense to buy that property, and that's the cheapest type of property we can buy within that area. So, if you're interested in investing, we have a lot of different tools available for you, but it's important that you get educated. Regardless if you watch our YouTube videos, become one of our members, even work with us in the coaching program, or if you find some other source to learn how to be able to do this. It's so important that you do this so that you don't make the mistakes that we see take place all the time at auctions.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we could just encourage it, you just all do everything. It's just to get educated enough that you can avoid the mistakes, and you understand what you're looking for, what you're trying to avoid. Because it's amazing. There are a lot of people that do it and don't go through these steps. And certainly this is an investment where you can make good money with it. You can also lose money with it if you're not careful. And we see that far too many times and far too often, to not try to and get across to people just how important it is to get educated on it and to understand the research that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you'd like to learn more, you can go ahead and, we have a YouTube membership program we're starting at $2.99 a month. We also have our membership program, which is going to give you access to our weekly webinars, our auction list, our online auction links, our state profile guides, our program and books. Gives you access to everything. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And, it starts at $29 a month and then goes up to $49 a month. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out our website. Also, give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. And any comments you have, please ask them. If you have questions, ask them down in the comments section. We'll get to them.
Yeah, I mean, our membership includes, training materials that you can download and use to essentially understand this, how it works, and to get yourself started. If you are, if you're self-motivated and you're a self-starter, basically it's everything there you need in order to go out and to be successful with it, to find properties and to get started. So yeah, I think that the membership is probably one of the best bargains out there for training.
I definitely agree. Appreciate everyone, and thanks again for watching.
Thank you.